So I'm curious if this theme of disappointment is something that other people, can echo and recognize. I think it is challenging to be around family because they can be judgmental, and they're sort of in your face about what you can do differently and what you should be doing, and all those musts and shoulds come up, and we can start to feel bad about ourselves. Aziza, excited to be home. Wonderful. Lockdown prevented me from being home last year. Not looking forward to job applications I need to complete, especially my 5-year-old outdated CV. Aziza, I'm so glad you're excited to be home, and I would encourage you to look at some websites that might be able to help you update your CV that isn't so stressful. Donnie Feed, just left family and the dread was distant relatives misreading safe space and introverted behaviors from teens as negative isolation, and then family trying to fix teen versus accepting teens. Well, that is so true, Donnie Field, that a lot of times families don't understand teens, particularly teens who are outside the box thinkers, those with ADHD, learning disabilities, twice exceptionality, or anxiety, or depression. And so they put a lot of judgment and expectations onto teens, and they don't really take into account the processing differences, that some kids need more space, some kids need time to recover, some kids need things to go more slowly than the group. And so it's hard, particularly with distant relatives. Close relatives you can kind of talk to and sort of forewarn, but the second cousins or the great aunts and great uncles, it's harder to interact with them, for you and for your kids. So let's start with self-control. What can we do when we're activated around our family? I'm curious for you, what do you do when you start to feel triggered? Is there a place that you can go? Can you change your environment? And if so, in what way? Is there a phrase that you can say to others or to yourself? And lastly, how do you self-soothe? So let's take those one at a time because I just said a lot. So first of all, how do you change your environment? You're feeling triggered, you're noticing that you're upset, and you maybe go into another room. Is that far enough? Do you need to put your coat on and take a walk around the block? Do you need to go into the bathroom and close the door and wash your hands and just take a few minutes to say a comforting phrase to yourself, like I can do this, or it's hard to appreciate myself when I'm getting negative messages from others. I am okay. I have a community of people who think I'm okay. So what about those options? What are the self-soothing things that you do when you're with your family? Maybe you take a run every morning, or you meditate. Tell me what you do when you're with your family to practice self-control. Because when we're with our families, we get triggered so quickly. In fact, I have to share with you this card um, that I found. I want to tell you what it says because I think it's really both sad and funny. And the card says, parents know how to push your buttons because, hey, they sewed them on. And I love that. Parents know how to push your buttons because, hey, they sewed them on. I definitely sewed on my children's, and my parents sewed them on for me. And this is very frustrating for all of us because we don't want to have our buttons pushed, with the family. We all have the Hollywood ideal of that happy family together around the table. Sorry, my heater was working. Around the table, laughing and eating, and then watching a movie with popcorn. That's kind of what we do in our culture. We think about that. But in reality, family get-togethers are often really challenging and difficult. So let's see. Aziza says, thank you. I have all the info. It's the starting and collating them on the CV that's hard. Struggle to be concise and perfectionistic, avoidance and fatigue. Aziza, I hear you. What I would suggest is doing something first where you just add all the information, put it aside. Then the next day you can come back and edit some of that information. put it aside. Then the next day, something else. So you do one task at a time and maybe sit down while we're here now and we could brainstorm if you want, like how to divide up those tasks so you're not overwhelming yourself. Aguilar says prayer helps me a lot. Prayer is wonderful. Um, Aziza, that's such a profound quote. I know, like we could unpack this, for the whole hour. My parents sewed my buttons on. That's why they can push them. Sometimes I feel like kids also can push our buttons. They may have done a Velcro with a button or stuck a sticker on, but they've also figured out how to push our buttons. So it goes both ways. Chuck, break core, music genre, meditation, stepping outside. I love that. That's fantastic. Maybe put a playlist on your phone. I have, one of like, I call, happy songs. I have some anger. I have an anger playlist. I have a workout playlist. And depending where I am, I go to that playlist. You're welcome, Aziza. So let's continue to think about, we have some suggestions. What will you do when you're activated? Some of you will pray. Some of you will step outside. Some of you will dance in the bathroom by yourself to your favorite song. You have some tools, a strategy. I don't think it makes sense to go into any family gathering without that strategy. It's too hard. It's too stressful and hard. And I think a lot of us go into these family gatherings with hope. Oh, it's going to be different this time. I just know it. But maybe it's not. Those patterns repeat themselves. They're unconscious and they're very powerful. And sometimes they're conscious and they're powerful. So we want to make sure that we're armed with the tools in our toolbox that we need to make it through. So when we leave, we're not in a sort of despairing and depressing spiral. Hi, Nikki. So what's the second C? The second C is compassion, and this includes self-compassion, okay? We are all doing the best we can with the resources we have available to us at any time. That includes how our parents were with us and how we were with our kids. And I'll tell you honestly, that's what I struggle with. Like, I can't believe after years of training and in graduate school and internships and being a therapist that I made some crappy mistakes with my kids. It's hard to practice that forgiveness and to realize that that was just the resources I had in those moments. And that's true for our parents as well, and it's true for our kids. So we want to have compassion with ourselves and to remember that when there's more stress, we have less access to our resources because the adrenaline in our brain pushes away our coping strategies. We can't access them. So we also want to recognize that holidays can bring on excitement and stress and anxiety. And all of these, the anxiety and the excitement and the stress, they actually work in the same kinds of patterns in our brains and bodies. And so it's helpful for us to notice that excitement and anxiety or excitement and stress are really related in how we process them physiologically. So this is why it's important to treat some of the nervousness that we may have or that anxiety and ask ourselves, instead of like, ugh, I'm so worried about this, or could we say, I wonder about, or I'm excited about, and I'm nervous at the same time. Just that little shift in language can alter your focus as well. Luciana says, but how to get them to understand your need in the moment and not be rude? That's a great question. I'd love to hear what you would say. And that's kind of where I'm going in the next thing. We want to collaborate with our partners, with our children on what to say in stressful moments so we can take a break that's not an angry, I have to get out of here, or you're driving me crazy. What we want to be able to say is, wow, you know what? I think I'm a little overwhelmed. I'm going to take a little break. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Or my bucket's kind of full. I need some space to just to just bring it down, I'll be back. So we want to be able to say things that aren't about other people, but that are about our needs without being too vulnerable or exposing ourselves to criticism. Now, if you say, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I just need to take a pause. I'll be back. The response you might get would be, why are you overwhelmed? What's wrong with you? There's nothing overwhelming here. Your job is not to take the bait. Your job is to say, I'm going to do what I need to take care of myself, and I'll see you soon. Don't get into it with them. Don't say, oh, gee, I wish you could understand me better, or I'm different than you are. Don't you get that? Just say, I'm going to do what I need to take care of myself. Draw the boundary and leave. The aggravation of the expectation that somehow they're going to get it. They're going to wake up and they're going to see, wow, I understand my child at this point, and I'm doing something that's really not working, is not a realistic expectation, particularly around the holidays. It can be a hope that you have, it can be a longing that you have, but it's probably not something that's going to emerge during the holidays, because everybody brings all this baggage to the holiday and it's fully loaded. So come up with a couple phrases, and I'd love you to put in the chat right now what some of the phrases might be for you to say in the moment when you need to take a little bit of space. What could you say that wouldn't be rude, but that would be clear? Alethea says, I try to see how it feels from the other person's viewpoint, and it can be a real eye-opener. I agree. Angela says, I wish I'd had these tips during Thanksgiving. Glad to have them now. So happy that you're here and you can use them. So the third C is collaboration. So this is collaboration with your kids, collaboration with your partner, and if I dare say, collaboration with yourself. So let's start with how we're going to work with kids during the holidays. We want to give warnings for transitions, reminders about plans and tools for conversations with relatives. Talk with your kids about their nervousness and brainstorm some solutions to what to do when they feel that way, how to act, and some words. They need coaching on social behaviors. What do they say if they don't like the food that's being served, or the present that someone gives them? Or how do they respond when, Uncle Joe wants to give them a hug and they don't even know Uncle Joe? Or if somebody pinches their cheek and says, oh, look how grown up you are. Or if they're identifying as they and people keep calling them by she or he, the frustration of that. So we want to sort of explore and plan for these misconnections so that when they happen, your child has something to say, or you can look at them and whisper, blah, 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 remember we said this, or send them a text or something like that. So we also want to help them understand, rather than just like get up when they're done eating, to say, can I be excused? Something basic that elderly relatives might really appreciate. You want to prepare your innermost relative circle, your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, your siblings, about some of the challenges that your child is facing without going into too much detail, just so that there's more understanding and compassion for them. You want to, so that instead of expecting X, Y, and Z, they understand that, oh, you know what? This is a challenge right now, so we're going to let this slide, but we're going to focus on this thing. Help them understand how to engage successfully with your child or teen, and so that they can try to connect with them on a level. Maybe let them know about a game they're interested in or an activity that they're doing, rather than having them, ask a lot of broad questions or questions that your kids can't actually answer. The fourth C is consistency. We want to figure out some type of daily routine for you to have during the holiday about your own screen limits and those for your kids. And you want to do that now before the holiday insanity gets even more intense. So decide how much screen, what types of screen each day, and if there's an exception, what does that look like? Have a conversation with your family. I want to go back to the collaboration thing because I also think it's important to talk to a partner if you have one. What do you think you might need in terms of support from your partner in this time when you're gathered as a larger family? What would your partner like as support from you? Taking the time now to strategize and talk about some of the issues will help you later when you're in the thick of it. Because I think we all kind of hope that we're going to get into something and it's somehow miraculously going to be better this time without actually doing the legwork to make it better. So I encourage you to do that legwork. Let's see, any comments on this idea about collaboration or consistency in terms of setting up the holiday for you? Aziza says, it's nothing you guys have done. I just need to rest for 30 minutes to an hour to recharge so I can be better company. I love that, Aziza. Sometimes we agree beforehand a signal or buzzword with an ally if less understanding guests are present. That's great. Does anyone else have some phrases that they could use with family to kind of, you know, say what's going on without being too vulnerable or being aggressive? What are some things that other people would like to say or could say in these moments or have said in these moments? Okay, so I'm curious. I'd love you to put in your in the box right in the comment right now. What are some things that you would like to say or that you think has worked before that you want to share again? So the fifth C is celebration. Of course, this is the holiday season, so we are celebrating and we want to enjoy being together. So notice when your kids actually get it right. You know, when they do what you ask, when they're following through, when they're showing initiative, high five, way to go, thank you so much. This is very helpful for kids to hear. It encourages them to keep doing the things that are positive. You know, when they're helping you out, when they're taking care of business. All of this is something that we want to pay attention to because it encourages them to keep going. Let's see. Kara says, I need to go out and get some fresh air. Great. Karen says, also good for the kid to learn about taking a time out when they're feeling overwhelmed. Yes, and we want to go back to noticing what are the bodily signals that tell you, whoa, I need a timeout. What is happening that happens? Tightness in the stomach, tightness in the chest, tightness in the throat, a headache, feeling nauseous, you know, clasping your fists. What are some signs that you're getting upset that will show you that you need a break? Also, watching you do it, that's a great way. We want to model for our kids how we would like them to respond and what we would like them to say. How do you what are some things that you notice help your kids sort of slow down or settle when they're getting activated that you could remind them of? Or for yourself, do you need to write it on your phone or on a journal? What are some things that help you notice that you're a little off? And what are some things that you would like from people around you to support you? Aziza says, siesta time. Make it a group activity so it's not just one person feeling awkward. Fantastic. Angela, I just got really quiet, which seemed to cause as much trouble as saying anything. So I think when you're getting really quiet, what happens is people project onto you a whole narrative about what's going on for you that may be completely different than what you're actually experiencing. So it's worth being able to say one or two things rather than just pull into yourself and turtle, because people are very aware when you do that, and then they get a little anxious and they start to imagine things are different than they are. Aguilar, I'm not mad at you. I'm frustrated with the situation. That's great. Alethea, try to redirect conversation to less controversial topics. Sounds like a great idea, especially in these times. That's really important. And sometimes our kids might want to engage in a more controversial subject than is actually good for the entire group well-being, and you might need to redirect them. We need to halt hungry, angry, late, or tired. That's great. You want to assess that because those are all traits that will contribute to activation and stress. I love that. Um, I'm curious, what would you like from your spouse or your partner during these family gatherings that would feel supportive to you? And what do you think they might want from you? Because a lot of times when we are with our family, our own families of origin, we're very triggered and we are not able to be present for our partner, but we want some things from them. Or if we're with our partner's family of origin, they may be triggered and may need some things from us. So I'm curious, what would be helpful, do you think, in the partner realm here if you have one? Donnie Feed says, being intentionally sincere and not being the cause that triggers the introverts by inhaling before addressing family. I love that. I'm a big fan of breathing. We got to do it all the time. So you can inhale. You could do that, what I call triangle breathing, excuse me. You inhale for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You hold for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you exhale for 6. And that doesn't, you don't have to do it so loudly, but you can just inhale, hold, and exhale to slow yourself down. I think that's fantastic, Donnie Feed. So I'm curious, what do you want from your partner or a sibling in these moments? Aziza, have mobile phone alarms because I can boom and bust. That sounds great. So if you want to throw up any ideas for what your partner could do that would be helpful, that would be great. Finally, I want to talk about overwhelm. So, in the holidays, it's easy to do like 3 major events a day, and you're stressed and exhausted, and your kids are stressed and exhausted. Narrow it down. 1 major event per day with time to recover and time to prepare. So simplify. More is not always better. Sometimes less is better. So doing 1 big activity a day, maybe followed by something smaller, might very well be enough for you and for your family. So when you do less, you can connect and relax more with other people because your brain isn't going all the time about what's next to do, what you have to do, and you can be more present, right? You can kind of let it down. Althea says, my husband is great at bringing up good memories, interesting conversations to redirect everyone. Oh, thank you, husband. I love him. My husband is good at that too. And sometimes if we're in a situation and I'm really having a hard time, I'll say, excuse me, Kenny, that's my husband's name. Can I talk to you for a minute? And we'll go in another room and I'll tell him I'm having a really hard time and why. And he'll I might go to the bathroom or go upstairs for a little bit, and then he'll kind of go back to the conversation. Or sometimes I'll just look at him over the table and I'll just give him the eye and he'll know. And so we want to try to rely on a trusting presence. That's sometimes really hard in families. We don't know who that is, but we want to figure out who that is before we get together. We also want to talk with our kids about how we can support them. Because sometimes, when we're with our own parents, we're flooded, and then we're not able to be as present for our own children as they would probably like and they might need. So that's another good thing to talk about before they get together. What do you think really irritates you about grandma? Or what do you think is really hard when you see, Aunt Sally? So that you can have some some compassion, that extra compassion for your kids, and maybe, steer things off before they head to a conflagration. Aziza, sometimes afterwards, my mom will explain further when recharged to affirm she was exhausted and her shutdown wasn't anything to do with me, especially when our energy peaks and dips aren't synchronized. Yeah. So this is a great point, Aziza. And this is my seventh point, which is Q-tip. Quit taking it personally. How people act during the holidays has a lot more to do with them than with you. But as sensitive people with ADHD, we can often take this on, right? We take on, I'm a sensitive person. I can take on things that have nothing to do with me. It's not one of the things I like the most about myself. On the flip side, I'm really sensitive, so that actually makes me a better therapist and therapeutic coach. So we want to sort of understand that we have sensitivities and they have sensitivities, but we don't want to import things that don't belong to us, and we don't want to personalize things that really aren't about us. So I'm curious if you could put in the comments, how do you know when something is about you, and how do you know when and how do you know when you've taken something on that doesn't feel right? It's not really yours, but you've taken it on. Because that habit is so ingrained for so many of us, because we learned to do that growing up. A lot of us learn to take care of siblings or our parents or and not necessarily ourselves in the family dynamic. So does anyone have any answers to that question? How do you know when people are saying things to you that really aren't about you? And in those cases, what can you do to take care of yourself? So one of the things that I think would be helpful in those moments is to actually check in and say, is this about me? And that's where that self-control break is so important. Because if you're starting to feel bad about yourself, if someone is criticizing you, if you're starting to feel like you're not good enough or ashamed, those are red flags to tell you that what's being, sort of dumped in your direction is not yours, it's someone else's. But they're dumping it and you're importing it. And I want to help you stop the import business. Aguilar says, what would be non-controversial topics of conversation? For me, I think movies, books, fun activities, things that you've done that you enjoy. I probably would stay away from news topics, as those can be very triggering. Maybe talking about celebrities or food. Food is always great to talk about, good recipes, things that you enjoy. Of course, I talk about my, pets. Pets are always a non-controversial topic. Hi, Susan. We're talking about how to be with extended family over the holidays. Yes, passive aggressive comments are often comments that people export onto you that are about them and not so much about you, but you might import them and then you're feeling bad about yourself. Susan, we're actually talking about not happy memories, but if you could share some, but how to get through family gatherings and really hold on to yourself in the midst of the swirling dynamic around you. The weather, yes, Trish, we could talk about the weather for sure. I think that's great. You can message a friend or someone else to rescue you via message call, so you can excuse yourself to take the call or reply to the message. Fabulous, Aziza. I love that. When my kids were in high school and they were going to something that they weren't sure that they really wanted to go to, they would say, if I text you to call me, please call me, because that means I want to come home or you have an escape. So that's a great idea. I like that. I'd love to hear about happy holiday memories before we wrap up. Does anyone have some happy memories they'd like to share? Susan, small family gathering again this year, not so overwhelming. Fantastic. So one thing that you want to think about is like what your system can actually handle in terms of being with a family, because it may not be able to handle a big family gathering. That just might be too much. And that's okay. You do what you can handle. Aziza, my mom has 3 rules: avoid or minimize talk of politics, religion, and bad news. Those are good 3 rules, I think. Donnie feed. This just happened with me and my mom, where I had to choose not to feed the issue that I felt she had and simply increase my affection and patience and refuse not to be drawn into the storm. I chose to self-monitor my emotions to keep from engaging. Donnie Field, if you were here, I'd give you such a big hug and 2 high fives. Bravo. Can you give us a hint about how you were able to do that? Because I'm sure everyone would like to know. How did Donnie Field do that? That is incredible. I would really like to know. Sometimes it's hard to actually be aware of how you're feeling in the moment. You're just trying to keep up, or you're feeling bad, but you don't want to say anything and you're not sure what to do. So I think it would be great if we could share in this thread, when you notice that you're not feeling so good, how are you going to take care of yourself? And we talked about this earlier, so I think that's great. But how are you going to offer yourself some compassion? Because that's really what's being called for in these difficult moments. How can I hold on to myself in the presence of everybody else's issues and not take them on or lose myself or get activated or overly triggered? We want to hold on to ourselves in the presence of what's happening around us when it's not ours to take on. So I would love to either hear from Donnie Field a little bit about how you monitored yourself, and other people, if you want to share a happy holiday memory. I think that's a lovely way for us to end today. Trisha Leah says, I do that with my mom, and I feel like I just kind of watch from a distance, not dissociate, but just kind of an observer. Yeah, that's a self-protective mechanism. Donnie Feed. I noticed that she was trying to manipulate me by making me feel bad, but I knew it was not me. Whoa, fabulous. I kept asking myself, what did you do to get her here? And I knew I did nothing. So I coached myself to be affectionate. Right. So Donnie Feed, this is the best example of going meta. And in Buddhism, they talk about the meta prayer. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering. And what meta really is zooming out. So, you pretend you're a camera and you zoom out for the long view and the wide view and see what else is going on. And when you do that, you have a better perspective about who you are, what you're doing, what's working, and what's not working. So I really encourage you all to try that, because it seems super important to be able to do that when you're with family. And that's hard, because sometimes being with family can feel lonely. You're in a room of people, yet you may not feel seen or heard. And so that's why I think it's helpful to text a friend, have a rescue plan where you talk to someone and you can reach out to them, or some quotes that you have on your phone that you can say to yourself that will build you up. I also think that it's helpful to try to remember that compassion, that we're all trying to do the best we can with whatever tools we have available to us in a given moment. And when we're stressed, there are fewer tools. Let's focus a little bit on celebration before we stop. I'd love it if you could share some happy memories of the holidays. I think that this is a time where there's been a lot where we can think of, getting together and grace. Last year at this time, many of us were unable to be with family. And this year, more people are gathering. So what are some memories of happy holiday times that you want to share with us? Donnie Feed. Ah, God, it was hard. Yeah. But I kept praying for grace and sincerity and didn't want to create an offense in my attempt to stay free of someone else's high emotions, and it worked. God bless you. I think that is fabulous. So does anyone have any happy holiday memories? Susan, you were asking about happy holiday memories. I would love to hear some happy holiday memories. From you, I think it's really important that we try to remember those positive times and what worked and made them happy and apply it to this year. Susan, I made a pie last year that was new for me. Fabulous. Anybody else do something? Did you, any of you do something different for a holiday recently, or have a holiday experience that was positive that you could bring to this season? Um, so I'd love to hear about that from you, and what you did that made it fun. Um, Donny Feed, as my family, we build bread houses, and I have a gingerbread house competition. That's great. When I was a little girl, my family, we would have, it was my family and my aunt and her family and my grandparents, and we would have Lego competitions, and my grandfather was the judge, and those were always fun. Serena, I plan to spend the holidays, especially Christmas Day, alone. It was so peaceful and quiet with no stress. Wasn't planned, but happened. So that's great, Serena, because you're doing what you need to do. How about somebody else? Who else has some plans for the holiday? What are you thinking about doing? Anybody want to share what you're doing or what you've done in the past that's been really good? When my kids were younger, we often would travel over the holiday to places that were not, destination vacations because it was winter, but we didn't care, and we had some great times doing that. Aziza, a happy memory is when we were all not working that day. We congregated at my house my aunt rented, so we had a family meal, a food, nap, and watching nostalgic shows on the TV together, and the kids went to make snow angels for the first time. That's lovely. Susan went to a night light show at a local public garden last year. It was wonderful after a year indoors. Oh, I happen to love Christmas lights. And that night light show, it's so fun, the bright lights and the colors and contrast to the dark. That sounds great. John, staying home quietly, just the two of us, thank goodness. Oh, that sounds good, John. Just what you need, make you feel good. Anybody else? What are some of your plans for the holiday? I'm going to be at a yoga meditation retreat. I leave tomorrow, and I'm psyched to really kind of be with myself in that environment. My husband has to work, and my kids are doing their own thing. Serena, happy memories. Being at grandparents with grandma making pumpkin pies in the kitchen. Another memory is making gingerbread house with my oldest daughter, and Christmas Eve making homemade pizzas with the family and company. Oh, these sound wonderful. Ashley, hi. My 7-year-old daughter who was recently diagnosed, myself with ADHD. I'm grateful to have spent the last year working on myself so that I can help my daughter understand herself and how to identify, label her emotions, and explain her impulsiveness. This has brought her peace along with myself because I know she will have support and understanding that she needs, not to suffer like I did. Aww. So let's see. This is huge. I will be there for her, and she knows she's not alone. This is huge for us because she struggled last year during Christmas season, so I believe this is going to be one of our best Christmases yet. I can't wait to meet with you after the first of the year to hear about that. Let's see who else. Aguiar breaking piñatas, looking for $100 bills. That sounds fun. Ashley, we're able to go to Christmas festivities without all 3 kids fighting and being stressed. Fabulous. Michelle, I want to make happy memories with my children, something I didn't have as a child. What would you like to do during those happy memories? I always think of, making cookies or latkes, and I also love to drive around. I used to drive my kids around around the Christmas holidays and look at the lights all over town. That was really fun, and we decide which was our favorite. What things would you want to do to create a happy memory this year? Michelle, any ideas? I love some of these things that you are all doing, and I'm so happy for you that you have positive plans after this year of, darkness and complication and COVID and everything. So, any more happy memories or holiday ideas to do something fun? I love, I think cooking together with kids is great, particularly kids with ADHD, because it's hard for them to do all of those steps on their own. So, when you're together, you can kind of usher them through it. Maybe if it snows, doing snow angels or building a snowman, getting outside. And if you live in a place that's warm, getting outside and walking around and enjoying the festivities and the window dressings in cities can really be fun too. I'd like to say, as since we won't be meeting for 2 weeks, that I feel very grateful for you and this community this year. Um, Thank you so much for how you show up for everybody and for yourself and your family by joining us in these conversations. Lissa says, after we had kids, I refused to travel on Christmas Eve day. There was pushback on that, and this year, extended family is hosting on Christmas Day, and we're staying home for our own traditions. Ooh, fabulous. I'd love to hear what those are. You're making hot cocoa, popcorn, watching, old movies, playing games. Sounds great. Ziza, one time my aunt drove us at night, opened the skylight of our car, and told us when we looked up, into the millions of stars in the sky to imagine we had been transported to another country. It worked. I love that. Susan, looking forward to the Rose Parade. Always fun for the new year. Yes, those floats are amazing. Michelle, baking, just being led by what the children like and think is magical. I love that. Magic in the holidays is so special. Just seeing a smile on their faces, just feeling close, looking forward to snow in the UK. Oh, fingers crossed. Patty, we spent a Christmas away from home with another kid's family, another friend's family kids. Nice to be away from the clutter. That sounds nice. Serena, congrats on the support here and being so understanding, plus helping her understand she can grow from a medical scientific point. People with mental health conditions, especially when a child needs at least one supportive, accepting, encouraging person in their life to grow and make it. Yes, thank you. Lisa, due to comfort levels with COVID, we're changing it up, and my sister's coming over here with her new little baby. I'm so excited. Oh, congratulations. That sounds wonderful. Well, I wish for all of you a magical, relaxing, calm, connected, restorative holiday. Have fun. Um, uh, may you be filled with light and shine your light on others. Thank you for participating this year in this Facebook Live. It is truly a highlight of my life to be able to be here with you. I'm very grateful for all of you, and I'm sending so much love. Blessings, health, happiness, and connection in this coming year. Thank you. I'll see you after the very first Friday. I think it's January 7th, when we will start up again. You're welcome, Susan. Aziza, you're saying, I love how in Nigeria, even though we don't celebrate Christmas as a religious holiday, it's always lovely how family and friends of different religions would visit each other and eat lots of good food. That sounds fabulous. Donnie, feed this platform is such a blessing. Yes, grace and love to all of you. Happy holidays. Bye.